I'm Michael Shulman, editor of ChangeWave Shorts. I also follow biotech, have done it for many, many years, and I find that the pandemic flu scare, the potential for a pandemic flu outbreak, and its impact on markets is a very, very interesting and potentially profitable intersection of those two areas, shorting stocks and biotechnology. What has happened in the past few days is the threat of pandemic flu, worldwide flu, a strain that there are no existing vaccines, although there are existing treatments, has caused a near bubble in certain stocks. Some of them very little biotechs without much cash and without much revenue or any revenue whatsoever. What I want to discuss right now are five stocks that have either run up a little or run up a lot, and what might happen to them if this truly turns out to be a bubble and not to be a real pandemic, which in a real sense everybody hopes for. The first is maybe the best biopharma company on the planet. It's Gilead Sciences. The symbol is GILD. Gilead has a royalty of almost 20% on sales of Tamiflu. They created it and gave it, sold it to Roche, so to speak. And they made a fortune in the first pandemic flu scare, generated huge amounts of cash. And this could happen again. In fact, there's a strong possibility that even if this scare goes away, governments will start replenishing stockpiles of Tamiflu. Tamiflu does degrade over time on the shelf. So Gilead is actually a much better long than it is a short. I would stay away from it from shorting it if you're a momentum trader and looking at the charts and you see the bubble pop because this doesn't turn into a real pandemic. I wouldn't consider Gilead one of those companies you could short except for anything other than a day trade. Another company that sort of falls in the same category, good long-term prospects, momentum running up, stay away from it as a short if the bubble ends, is Crucell, a Dutch company, symbol CRXL. They are the Intel inside of manufacturing vaccine, of vaccine manufacturing technology. They have a brand new 21st century system, uses synthesized human retina cells as an incubating mechanism for creating vaccines, rather than what we use now, which is eggs. I mean, real old-fashioned eggs. Partnered with a lot of companies, not necessarily a high flyer in terms of profitability, but a really solid company. It's run up significantly since this started, but as I said, it is a solid company, and people may start to create new vaccines and stockpile them. So the bottom line here is it would be a difficult company to short longer term, maybe a day trade. Now, opportunities you do have would be a good company, but the stock has exploded, called BioCryst. The symbol is BCRX. American company. They make a treatment for flu called Peramivir. It's in mid-stage trials. It seems to have been in mid-stage trials forever because they screwed up their past trial, not under current management, by literally having the wrong needle size that couldn't get through a third of the patients whose butts were too big. You can't make this stuff up. And BioCryst, everybody expects Peramivir to get an easy approval when it goes through final trials, because it did work in injectable form when Johnson & Johnson had it. Johnson & Johnson couldn't turn it into a pill that worked very well. Gave it back to BioCryst, and then when pandemic scare started a few years ago, the government came to BioCryst, and BioCryst is now working with government money to complete its trials. The stock has gone from 1 to around 4 because of this event and others. They did a cash settlement with Roche on another project, and if this bubble ends, you could easily see it retracing back to $1.50 or $2. Barring some government action, which I don't foresee. Another stock that you could easily short once the bubble ends is a company called Novavax. Again, no indictment of the company. This is really about the stock. They make vaccines. They focus on flu vaccines. They also make vaccine manufacturing technology. And they've claimed they can turn out and churn out within 90 days, getting the proper strain. They can churn out lots of vaccines. They're cash poor. They have some government contracts, and the bottom line is the stock is run unreasonably, and should this end, they still have the issue of raising cash and diluting shareholders and so forth and so on. So there's also a fifth choice here, and it's something that has run up as well in sympathy. It's a company called Cirrus. The symbol is CERS. Again, I'm going to say this up front, don't short the stock when the bubble ends. It does something called pathogen inactivation in blood and blood platelets, and what that means is it cleans up diseases in the blood, so it's donor independent. You don't worry about who the donor is, whether they have HIV or whether they have swine flu. It's on their label. They've, as I said, gone up in sympathy. There'll be a lot of activity in the issue of unknown diseases getting into the blood supply. Solid long-term companies, solid long-term prospects. Again, maybe it's a day trade. Make a couple of bucks if the bubble ends and everybody becomes aware of it. but not a company to go after for a longer term short. The longer term shorts here, when the bubble ends, if the bubble ends, and actually we should be rooting for the bubble to end, are BioCris, BCRX, and Novavax, NVAX. No indictment of the companies, no indictment of their long term future. It's just the stocks are clearly bubble stocks right now. This is Michael Shulman for ChangeWave Shorts.